Hello and welcome to Habits and Healthspan, an Amway podcast. We're so glad that you're joining us once again. My name is Alyssa. I'm glad to be here with you, and we have some guests as always. We also, of course, have my incredible co-host, John. Hi, John. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Alyssa. Can't get rid of me that easily. I'm sticking around.
No, that's a very good thing. This is very much a team thing.
Absolutely. So, Alyssa, I'm curious, what's going on with you?
Yes.
What's new in your life?
So I was thinking about this podcast last night after I attended my son's volleyball match.
Okay, what level?
Middle school.
Okay.
Right? So we're still having fun. Hopefully he's having fun beyond that, but we're still having fun. And I am new to the sport, so I had to have somebody explain to me when a call was made, because the ball bounced off the ceiling in the gym. You know, these things happen, but I'm new to the sport and I didn't grow up playing sports. So somebody explained it to me, and after they said it, I immediately thought, yeah, I'm going to have to hear that 2 or 3 more times before I actually understand what that rule is. And I kind of feel like that's how it is with this podcast, because it's information that perhaps I've heard before, but hearing it again and again in a number of different ways and taking deeper dives into this subject matter has just really been helpful for me, because I get to sit with it more and more.
I cannot agree with you more, Alyssa. I've grown up going to various baseball games, and I can explain how it works, but last summer I went with a buddy that really knows it, and it was a completely different experience. I was so much more engaged and learned so much. Important to have some mentors.
We need those guides, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of incredible guides,
Speaking of.
Alyssa, we're talking to 2 fantastic women today to guide us through skin health at the cellular level. We've talked about skin health before, but now we're taking a slightly different angle. Always more to learn.
Always.
So first up, joining us, we have Dr. Khushboo Singh. She is a senior research scientist with Amway's Research and Development. Dr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the introduction, John. You can call me Khushboo. I am a computational scientist, and my work focuses on using advanced molecular techniques to identify beneficial compounds in botanicals, even before they ever reach the lab. It's like finding keys that nature has already created to unlock body's potential for healthy living.
I love that image. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. And also we have Dr. Karima Djabali. She is a professor at the Technical University of Munich and also involved with several research agreements with Amway Research and Development. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you for having me. Well, I have a PhD in cell biology, so my interest is obviously to look at cells and figure out how we can improve cellular health. And the focus in my lab is try to unravel the molecular mechanism underlying cellular aging. And one of the model systems that we are using is to look at a very rare disease called Hutchinson-Gilford progeria syndrome. This is a model where cells are aging very fast. So dissecting the molecular mechanism in this system can open a window to understand probably also what is going on during normal aging.
All right. Well, this is great. We're so glad that both of you are with us. So let's jump into this material a little bit more. Karima, we hear a lot about cellular health. Can you tell me, is this the same as cellular vitality?
Cellular health means maintaining the cell integrity and the cellular function. This is when the cell is healthy. But sometimes the cell has to encounter some stress, such as reactive oxygen species that we call oxidative stress. Then this will lead to cellular damage. And depending on the components of the cell that will be damaged, the cell needs to somehow restore their function. And if it doesn't manage to restore it, then it needs to be degraded. And then it needs to have a mechanism to increase its autophagy, which is the largest mechanism of degradation of subcellular component or large aggregates. And it's basically similar to the garbage can that we will have at home.
You mentioned cells getting damaged or accruing stress from oxidative stress. Can you speak a little bit more about what that actually, like how do the cells actually incur that stress? What do you mean by that?
So cells, if we can, we take an example of the skin cells. They are submitted to various stress. It can be UV light, irradiation, and this will generate an oxidative reaction, which means that the proteins can be altered by the reactive oxygen species and modified, or the lipids or the membrane. And all that will ultimately lead to alteration of cellular function. And the cell needs to adapt to this aggression or damage by activating different kind of response mechanism. And one of them, the major one that I spoke about earlier, is the autophagy. And autophagy is crucial because it helps the cell to get rid of any organelles or proteins that are damaged. Not only it does degrade it, but it will be recycled. For instance, if it's a protein that is degraded, you will end up having small compound digestion, that you will have the amino acid that will be reused for protein synthesis, for example.
Just adding to Karima's thoughts, I completely echo with her thoughts, but cellular health and cellular vitality, they are related, as she said, but it's also not exactly the same, even though it's used interchangeably. So cellular health is more about baseline function of cells. Are they structurally intact? Are they performing their basic tasks? Are they free from any obvious damages? It's kind of saying that your car starts, runs, and gets from point A to point B. That's it. But cellular vitality takes it a notch further. It's now not just about your car, whether your car runs, it's how well it runs, whether it accelerates smoothly, whether it's fuel efficient, whether it can handle different conditions and terrains and strains. So that's the basic difference. And I think it's a big focus in Healthspan and research today.
Khushboo, I'm loving these images that you're giving me, the keys to the house, the car starting, all of this.
Yeah, and the garbage too. These are very helpful things.
Yes. What's naturally rising in my mind is I go, okay, well, if these cells are being damaged in some way, or if they're having to go through this process, yeah, they're tiny, but you add up enough of these and you're going to start seeing effects. I have to assume. Is there any relationship between this cellular health and aging or other ways that we'd see it manifest in the skin?
That's a great question. And both skin health and cellular aging are definitely connected to each other. So skin is not just our outermost layer, but it's also a great communication hub between our internal organs and our external environment, outside world. So it would be not wrong if I say that skin is a mirror to what's going on throughout our body at a cellular level. So when we look at skin aging, whether it's loss of elasticity or whether it's loss of hydration or pigmentation or even wrinkles, so though it starts at the skin, but actually most of the pathways are often connected. And the same genes that are responsible for skin damages are also the ones that are responsible for overall aging of the organs.
This is very important, is that skin aging is basically reflecting many cellular mechanisms that are also observed in internal organs. I spoke earlier about the UV damage and the production of ROS, this oxidative reactive species, and they can cause DNA damage, and this will cause genomic instability. And then the cell has to repair its damage. So it will have to signal for different signaling pathways that are very known in the aging field, such as the mTOR pathway, the IMPK pathway, which are nutrient and energy implicated signaling pathways. And those are major sensors of damages, and the cell has all kinds of tools to tweak or reset all this signaling so that the cell can restore its function. And during aging, depending on the level of the stress that the cell will accumulate, either it will die or it will senesce. And when cells are senescent, that's what we call old cells, in brackets. They are really not that innocent in a way, because they can live for a very long time, and they can have very negative effect on the surrounding neighboring cells, on the extracellular matrix, and also on the tissue as a whole, and can lead to organ dysfunction. So it is extremely important to understand the impact of all this different stress that the cell can respond to. And when it cannot answer properly, it has only two possibilities: die or senesce. And when it senesces, it starts to change and adopt a different morphology, where it becomes more flattened, but it can survive for quite some time. And then it can turn on hyperactivation of some signaling pathway, for instance, in this case, the mTOR pathway, that will lead to secretion of pro-inflammatory factors and many other factors that are all called the senescence-associated phenotype that we all call the SASPs. And when you have the SASPs, that's not good, basically. If you have one cell that senesces, you have a little bit of these SASPs that invade the extracellular environment. But if you have more and more accumulation of these senescent cells, then you create a pro-inflammatory milieu that will somehow contaminate the rest of the cells surrounding around. Of course, initially, the secretion of the senescents, the SASPs, were to call the immune system to destroy them and get rid of them. But as we get old, even the immune system gets also old. That's what we call immune senescence. And then its efficiency to recognize the senescent cell and to get rid of them decrease. And that's why we are ending up having more and more senescent cells accumulating in some organs. And in the skin, in particular, we can see these senescent cells in the dermis. And very often those are the fibroblasts that somehow, when they are submitted to too much stress, they enter premature senescence or senescence. So it's also something important to know is that senescence is not always bad. When we have a wound or an injury, we need the senescent cell to call upon the immune system and also to interact with and stimulate or activate the stem cells so that they can regenerate the damaged tissue. But as we grow old, all this communication is also diminished, and the wound healing is also diminished.
Just to make sure that I'm on the right page, there's a lot of great information. I want to make sure that I know exactly what we're talking about. Could you maybe take a second and define for us fibroblast? And earlier you had mentioned stem cells along with that. Can you just define those for us and how those fit into what you're talking about?
So the fibroblasts are located in the dermis, and the primary role of a fibroblast is to synthesize collagen, elastin, and all kinds of factors that will build this connective tissue in the dermis. So, and fibroblasts usually in the skin are quiescent, they don't divide. But in a petri dish, we can amplify them. And they turn out to be an excellent model to look at cellular aging. And also, as we age, the compartment within the the dermis is also challenged because you have a breakdown of the collagen fibers, a loss of the elastin, so everything is less flexible, less elastic. But not only that, is we lose the niche of the stem cells because the structure of this epidermis needs to be perfect. It's like a house. If you have this foundation that are breaking down, then the house will fall apart. And in the dermis, you need all this collagen, this connective tissue to make this structure stable and to have the niche of the stem cells located where they have to be and protected so that they can be recruited up and signaling when they are only needed.
Another fantastic image for us to take away here. You got the house with the foundation. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, this is really great information. I'm curious because the two of you have worked together. I'm wondering if you could tell us about that research that the two of you have done together.
So this project all started because we were looking at what kind of signaling pathway were overactivated in progeria cells, in these cells that senesce rapidly. And we were comparing them to normal cells, normal fibroblasts. And we saw that this JAK-STAT signaling was overactivated very early on compared to normal cells. And then we had to look at the possibility to block this JAK-STAT signaling with the hypothesis that it was that if we block the JAK-STAT signaling in progeria, we will diminish the inflammatory profile and thereby delay senescence.
So the pathway that we were studying is called the JAK-STAT pathway, which becomes hyperactive with age, driving chronic inflammation and accelerating cellular aging. And therefore, inhibiting these JAK proteins can help down some of these inflammatory responses, which is why pharmaceutical drugs target them. So Karima was investigating some of this pathway contribution to skin aging. And my role was to find plant-derived compounds that might interact with this protein and help modulate its dysregulation. So using computational modeling, we screened thousands of botanical compounds. The library consisted of nearly 60,000 molecules coming from plants to see which ones could actually bind to these proteins, specifically at the region which can inhibit and arrest the inactive conformation of the proteins. So and the real question here is that does the compound actually change the protein shape in a way that can shut down its activity? So fortunately, our simulations showed certain plant polyphenols don't just bind to JAK, they also stabilize in an inactive state, preventing it from sending these inflammatory signals. So essentially what we found was nature's own way of fine-tuning this pathway, going back to the keys analogy that I used. So yeah, so that's my contribution to the project, and definitely Karima can speak to the lab testing aspect of it. Traditionally, botanical remedies have always combined multiple active compounds. And now with computational tools, we can actually predict and test the synergies, not just the activity of one compound, but how multiple compounds come together and help each other to have that synergistic effect, rather than relying on trial and error method.
Wow, you said 60,000?
Yes,
Wow.
60,000 molecules.
That's a lot.
And that's called a medium-sized library. That's not even a large-sized library.
Incredible. Khushboo, could you talk a little bit about what kind of tests you have done, speaking of all these tests you're talking about, to look specifically at how to protect those fibroblasts and stem cells too?
Yes, like I said, I used computational methods, which is precisely called molecular docking. So molecular docking is a process or a method that takes each phytochemical at a time and looks at the binding site of the protein and sees if these molecules have the ability to interact with the surface of the protein. And if it's interacting, whether or not it's possible that this interaction can lead to a biological activity, in this instance, inhibition of the protein. So, like I was mentioning, binding is just not enough. It's just like a key that can bind to a keyhole but not open the lock, right? So, binding is not enough. So, we made sure that the binding could lead to a biological activity. And going back to the library, the first milestone was testing 60,000 molecules even before we start the lab testing, right? So, we screen for a large molecules. Typically, traditional approach takes months to years to figure out how many molecules are going to the lab for testing. But in this case, we did it in a couple of weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. So that's a milestone that we achieved, and we have been applying this technique across various other Healthspan and healthy aging projects. And that's when we decided that out of all of these 50,000 molecules, 60,000 molecules, we got a list of 1,000 or 500 molecules, if I remember it correctly, that had the potential of inhibiting, even though it's theoretical prediction of those 1,000 molecules to inhibit the JAK protein. And from there, we took it to the regulatory acceptance point of view, whether it's available, whether it's commercially feasible. And there were so many other filters that helped us to bring that 1,000 molecules to even to a shorter list of 10 or 50. And that's when Karima started her lab testings on those molecules, on fibroblast cells.
As I'm listening to both of you speak these things, like I start to get excited because I'm addressing things like aging in ways that I haven't before. So I hear you both saying all of this incredible research and these things that you're finding. Can you maybe tell me how your research will impact a very normal, everyday, non-scientist person like me?
People tend to focus on products and exterior ways to enhance their skin health. But science has now given a clearer picture how building those consistent habits, daily habits, can influence specific pathways involved in skin function, aging, repair. So I would not jump into skin protection right away by saying you use sunscreen and so on, because it's still the exterior thing that we're talking about. But for me, hydration is very important. It's a game changer. And at a molecular level, I can say that water is very essential for enzymatic activity, protein folding, cellular signaling. And also it impacts a very important channel called aquaporin that plays a very vital role in the passage of water into the cells, inside the cells. So that's again from a molecular level, but we can just say that let's start by hydration. Drink at least 7 glasses of water at least. So that's the first one. Second one is definitely nutrition, like Karima and I mentioned, JAK-STAT just being the first pathway that's being affected by phytochemicals coming from food, berries, turmeric, all these good things offered by our nature. So it impacts and has a very positive impact on our skin health and in general healthy aging. So those are 2 things that is my priority: hydration and nutrition. The third thing would be sleep. So sleep is such an important part that if you sleep every day consistently at the same time, wake up at the same time, and reset your biological clock, most of the pathways are resetted for a glowing skin, I guess.
Wow, that is so fascinating, because we've talked before on this podcast, John, about how it's wonderful when things overlap, and it makes sense, right? Because we're talking about our whole selves, right? But I mean, we've talked about these things like hydration before, and so thank you for making it just a little bit more accessible for me. Hydration and nutrition and sleep. These are great things.
It's important also to discuss the fact that the basic science, understanding about the mechanism at the cellular level, is also teaching us what to do. For instance, we know that if we have too much reactive oxygen species, in order to neutralize them, we need to take antioxidant. And those are eating your fruits and vegetables to have the vitamin C and other polyphenol to block that. And Also, maybe reduce sugar because the glucose is accelerating cellular aging. So there are many information that we should take home from pure basic science. So what is good for the cell can be good for the organism as well as a whole. So vitamins, vegetables, so a good diet. And also Khushboo did not mention, but exercise is also very crucial because it's increasing your blood flow, your oxygenation, and all that can only be beneficial for all your organs, including the skin.
Thanks so much for making that connection from your research right down to the everyday. And so it makes me just have to ask, what's next? Khushboo, can you talk about some of the testing that you're about to do, maybe some upcoming breakthroughs you're really excited about?
I'm particularly interested in personalized skincare with AI-driven models. So we're moving toward an era where personalized skincare isn't just about finding the right cream or the right serum for your skin type. AI models are now being developed to predict individual skin responses to different ingredients based on factors like genetics, lifestyle, environmental exposures. This goes beyond just knowing your skin type. We are talking about predicting how skin will react at a molecular level to specific treatments, making skincare routines far more targeted and effective. So that's one area that I'm really excited about.
I can't wait to learn more as that starts getting released out and you can hear more about it. Karima, could you say in a couple words what's exciting you about what's coming up in skin health?
We didn't mention, but all this future senolytics, those are drugs that kill senescent cells, or the xenomorphic that block the SASPs, the famous compounds that are pro-inflammatory and change the environment of the cells.
So this is so great. We are coming now to the part of our podcast, which is really starting to become, I think, my favorite.
Me too.
Yeah, where we ask our guests to sort of narrow down things that our listeners can immediately implement. And so I'm curious, can you both speak to perhaps one or two simple, succinct ways that we can affect our skin health on a cellular level?
I will say drink water, a lot of water, and exercise. Move, basically. Drink water and move.
Fantastic. And Khushboo, what do you got for us?
I would say incorporate antioxidant-rich foods, colorful vegetables in your daily diet. Second, I'll continue emphasizing on the importance of hydration. And the third one would be prioritizing sleep and reducing stress.
Absolutely love it. Well, Alyssa, looks like we got our to-do list.
I think so. These are all very manageable things. So thank you for boiling it down for us.
And thank you for also sharing all of your wisdom with us this hour. It's an absolute pleasure having both of you come in and visit. So Karima, thank you. Khushboo, thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thanks to all of you for listening at home. Make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.